Boston College brings in 27 transfers, and it is enough for the Eagles to take a major step forward, possibly even a bowl game.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all who are joining us, and thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. I've been the host of Locked On Boston College for over 5 years, been covering BC for over a decade. If you want your Boston College news and analysis, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for fan football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, just bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. On today's show, we're going to look at Blake James's comments on his podcast about the $50 million and revenue share discussion that he had going on. We're going to look at the Notre Dame fallout as BC basketball takes one step forward and two steps back. We're going to look at my thought for the best fit for the OC for Boston College football now that Will Long is gone. And I want to talk again about the transfer portal. I know some of you are my everydayers. You listen to this every single day, but I want to, for anyone who's just jumping in, who's brand new to this, to talk a little bit about the new transfer portal class, because BC announced it on Friday. Did that graphic, and just overall, it's striking how many people it looks like. It looks like, like if you're a wrestling fan, the WWE with their not WrestleMania, Royal Rumble posters, they used to have like 30 men on it. I mean, really, it's only 3 short of that. There's a lot, right? And this is because BC had to redo their entire roster. BC got hammered in the portal, or lost guys in the portal. I don't want to say they got hammered because I don't think that's a fair statement to say, but they lost quite a few. And many of those players that they lost were a handful of those players that they lost were key contributors to their team last year. Your Reed Harris's, your Turbo Richards, Dylan Lonergan, Spam Crouch, whether they were hurt or healthy, they were expected to be big role players for BC. So Kenyatta Watson comes in. He's the new general manager. He's got a swagger to him. He's an alumni who played football for BC in the 1990s. He's got experience with Florida State and Georgia Tech and Under Armour. He comes in, and it's his job to fix the roster and get it up to snuff. And you saw a lot of these names that came up were connected to Kenyatta Watson. You also saw, I think, a class that was very different than last year. Last year, our reaction to the transfer portal class, which was much smaller going into spring ball, was that you got your Dylan Lonergan, and I think we were really excited about Ty Lockwood, and then a whole bunch of question marks. And I mean, like, real question marks, like Amir Johnson and Favor Bate and Anye Nuisi, like guys that you just did not know anything about. And like Amir Johnson, he played like 1 season for Merrimack. You had Chuck Nato at Elon, who was someone that people were looking at, but really not a lot known. And Amir John, and some of these other guys like Favor Bate, it was just a big question mark on who they were bringing in. This year, yeah, you don't. If you're just a casual football fan, you're not going to know a lot of these guys. And I'll be fair, I don't know a lot. I didn't know a lot of these guys until I had to research. There's thousands of football players. How am I going to know, Chandler Jordan out of Georgia State or even Grayson Wilson over at Arkansas? Like, it's some of these guys are names you just aren't used to. So I look at what they needed to do. They had a 2-prong approach, in my opinion, that they needed to address. They needed to address the talent loss, because as much as you want to spin it, losing Reed Harris, losing Turbo Richard, losing Eric Doherty, losing Omar Thornton are tough losses. Those were 4 of your better players, and they're gone. That was one part. The second part was building depth that you sorely did not have last year. BC got hammered with injuries in 2025, and that's not an excuse for everything that happened, but it's certainly an issue that is worth mentioning. I mean, like, you can't realistically evaluate last year without bringing up injuries. Like, it's not fair to anybody. So you needed that depth, because when certain guys went down, there was nothing. You look at the linebacker room last year. You lost Bam Crouch. You had a, taped together Owen McGowan, a bunch of young guys, and then who knows? You're playing KP Price back there. So depth had to be something that they looked at. So let's look at the first part. Did BC address the need for talent? And I'm interested to see if they did, because one of the guys they brought in, Reed Swanson out of Colgate, is 6'6", had 80 catches last year and 1,000 receiving yards. Yes, it was in the Patriot League, but if you watch his film, he made opposing cornerbacks look silly. So if they can just tweak him to make him a little bit more ACC ready, that's a good get right there. You want guys that have big stat sheets. You got one right there, right? Same thing with running back. You lost Turbo. You brought in, and I said this on Friday's show, you brought in Evan Dickens. The hope is that you're pretty comparable, but Evan Dickens has good numbers too. So I'm liking that they brought these guys in. Of course, we have to wait to see what they look like playing in ACC football. But you went out there and you got guys that have played multiple years, guys that are older players. I mean, Reed Swanson's got to be like 23, 24 years old. Evan Dickens is, 20, 21. That's good. That's good. Offensive line, same thing. Like, you're replacing Eric Doherty. Like, you brought in multiple guards. You just brought in Evan Snively, who again is probably 24, 25 years old. That depth is going to be super important. And I look at the offensive line especially, and I love the depth that they brought there. But the talent, I think, will be key. Snively, for instance, if you don't know who this kid is, played at Eastern Michigan, played with Adazio at Colorado State. He did not let up a single sack last year. That, to me, is Kyle Hergel type numbers and the kind of guy you want at BC. So will they live up to the Eric Doherty, Reed Harris? That's hard to say now. This is going to be up to the coaching staff to take these guys, we're talking the talent piece here, and bring them to that level. I think they could. Will they? We'll have to wait and see. Secondly, is the depth piece, because injuries in football happen. It happens to every team. Patriots, maybe not, but lots of teams have bad injuries, right? BC had catastrophic injuries seemingly everywhere last year. Did they bring in enough depth? I look at positions and I say, this room looks a lot deeper than it did last year. Linebackers, for instance, going into spring football last year for the linebackers was scary. As I've said before, you had two walk-ons, Billy Van Pelt and Tim Hayes. You had Von Pemberton moving over from running back, and there was like one other guy, and Bryce Steele, and I think he was even hurt during the spring. So it was like really bare bones. You did lose Bam Crouch and you lost Owen McGowan, so you had to go out there and you got to get heavy with it. You brought in Anthony Polano from Washington State. You brought in Bodie Cahoon from Notre Dame, and Justin Metlock from SMU. 3 players from P5 schools. I'm going to consider Wazoo a P5 school. That's good. All 3 have, 2 of the 3 have played. And again, Bodie Cahoon, I think could be a real diamond in the rough for BC. You add that in with a Griffin Collins, who played decent snaps, and Kamori Dixon, who I think they're expecting to take that jump. Your linebacker room is pretty good. You got some depth there now. You don't have to play KP Price at linebacker. That's positive. I've mentioned it over and over again. The offensive line room. Yes, it got decimated by graduation and by the portal. But you have Michael Krantz coming back. You have Robert Smith, who's played there. And you have a guy like Judah Pruitt, who's played a little bit, and Pape Sai, who's played a little bit. But you brought in a whole bunch of guys that have played a lot. Reggie Jackson from Jacksonville State. You have Juju from Tennessee State. You have Chris Phillips from Michigan State. Like, they brought in quite a few guys that you're going to be looking at multiple. Like, the part that excites me as someone who covers this is the offensive line. There's a million computations that you could have that new offensive line coach Kurt Anderson can tweak to find what works best. You're not locked in with one guy. Like, you didn't bring in one tackle and say, well, he's our right tackle and that's it. Like, you have a bunch of guys that you can work out there. and find the best fit and then build your depth from there. That's positive. Other positions, cornerback, I gotta say, cornerback, they didn't really do a whole lot. They brought in Chandler Jordan from Tennessee, Georgia State. They were going to bring in Kevin Humes, but he ends up in Rutgers. What do they do next? This has got to be a position that they're looking at their youth. With the lack of going deep into that spot in the portal, to me, it strikes me that BC said Ashton Cunningham, Marcellus Townsend, Ray Sykes, Najita Sankala, like these types of kids are going to be our future. Let's get them out there faster. And TJ Green. Sorry, I don't mean to leave out TJ Green because he played quite a bit. That's got to be their thoughts. And the other piece that I didn't even hear about was that Cameron Martinez is back. He's got to be like 24, 25 too. BC's going to have an older roster. I'm going to tell you that right now. Like you got some young kids coming in, but they have a good chunk of older players. And I think that's going to help them. And so at the end of the day, the talent, if they coach it up, is there. Quarterback worries me, but if Bill O'Brien can do it in his third year, this would be a great step in his direction in the right spot. Quarterback is definitely a question. The talent, I like the talent they brought in at wide receiver. I like the talent they brought in at multiple positions. And the depth is going to be key. So yes, I do believe that if they coach them well, if they play well, this team could get back to bowl eligibility. They have a tough schedule, but last year BC was playing with bare bones and we're in a lot of these games. Remember that. Like there were games they got blown out, but remember, like Notre Dame, they were in that game. They had no reason to be in that game, but they were there. Georgia Tech, same thing. Like now that you have the talent and hopefully a little bit more depth, maybe they have a better chance. Again, this is all hypothetical. I am not saying they're going to be a bowl team yet. I need to see more. Again, prove it. Our second segment, I want to look at offensive coordinator again. I've given you some names, and I have two names that I really would love to see at Boston College. I'll explain who they are in just a moment. It's the last chance for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. For me, hey guys, you guys all know I'm a Pats fan. I'm pretty pumped about this. And I know you guys are too. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. And if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. We're on to baseball season and basketball and hockey. But the last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made us your first listen. And are you a diehard Locked on BC fan? Is my passion, does it resonate with you? Then you want to become part of our Everydayer Club because this takes your fandom of my show to the next level. Some of you have been asking me, hey, AJ, how can I support the podcast? This is a perfect opportunity. With becoming part of the base level, you get ad-free shows. You get access to our group chat Discord, which is basically like a text with all your buddies to talk BC sports. And I jump in there every now and then. You get all of this and more for your base tier. If you're nuts about this show, you want to hear more, you want special perks that no one else gets, become part of our all access tier. Right now, you get a free few months out of it. You're going to get special episodes. I'm going to drop one today. So you're going to see that on your feed. And if you're not an all access member, you're going to be clicking and it's going to say, no, you can't have it, but you're going to get one today. You get a newsletter every day. You get texting with me. You get scoops. You get details. You get locked on swag for a special rate. All of this is part of your all access tier. Sign up. It's right there. Right there. See it? Let me get my finger on the right spot. Right there. Sign up at lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. I hope to see you guys all there because we have a great community here at Locked On Boston College. All right, let's jump into our second segment here. The offensive coordinator position. Will Long is gone. For some people, they're very excited about this. For me, I get it. I get your, excitement for some change. I think change was definitely needed at that offensive coordinator position, because if I had to watch one more game where BC had a big drive on like 3rd and 7 and they ran the ball, I was going to scream. And that happened 4 times at least this year. And then the mesh rail and those calls that he called all the time. I think a fresh blood will be great. So last week I talked about different candidates for this offensive coordinator position. You could go outside and you could find guys that have connected to Bill O'Brien till your face turns blue. Obviously Will Long was his buddy. And, he brings in guys like Ted Roof, who he clearly connects with, but he also brings in coaches that he hasn't connected with, or at least I can't find one, like Mike Hart, the new running backs coach. I still don't understand how he knows him, but hey, that's good. Hey, find guys that you maybe have friends that know and whatnot. But what I want to say is I have my pick, and it may not be the sexiest pick. And many of you are going to go, ugh, when I bring this up, because I have my thought of who the offensive coordinator should be. And you don't have to go far for him. He's on the staff already, and it's Rob Chudzinski. I said this to my everyday all access tier last week, that I think Rob Chudzinski would be a perfect fit. Just do, because you don't need to go outside the organization to bring in somebody new. You have somebody who has worked with and has been successful with mobile quarterbacks. That is a key with this offense. The part about bringing in Mason McKenzie and Grayson Wilson and Femi Babalola in with Will Long was I was concerned that you have these dual threat quarterbacks. All 3 of them can run really well, and an offensive coordinator that does not run the ball at all or run the quarterback efficiently at all. We saw what he did to Tommy Castellanos. Like, say what you will about that kid, but like, you turned his biggest asset into a liability and then just broke him. They can't do this with these quarterbacks. Like, you're bringing in Mason McKenzie from Saginaw Valley, who ran for 1,000 yards last year. That's like Tyler Murphy numbers. I know it's D2. I know. And he had 10 touchdowns, but you need to build your offense around his legs. You do not need to bring him in to have him stand in the pocket and just try to make reads. That will not work. Maybe you can get him better at that, but you can't make that his offense. I was worried if Long was here, that's where it was going to go. Now, BC has had success with running quarterbacks. You go back to 2023, and who was the offensive coordinator for Tommy Castellanos? It was 2 people. It was Steve Shimko, who's killing it in the NFL, and it was Rob Chudzinski. Rob Chudzinski can do that. He knows the offense. He has been part of BC for years now. He's been just like a special analyst for a while, but that is enough. Like, he's worked in the NFL. He's been an offensive coordinator. He does it. He checks off all the boxes. So if Bill needs just to make a quick hire, bring in Chud. He also has worked with tight ends before. So that fills directly what Long's job has been. Like, you don't even need to do anything. You just bring another analyst in, some guy that Bill knows that's looking for, a paycheck or to help and not be a on the road coach like Chud was. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. That, like, I know folks bring up Jonathan DiBiaso, and look, Dibbs might be the guy a couple years down the road, but he's only been a quarterback's coach for a couple years now. I still think he needs a little bit more seasoning, especially like this year is really critical for BC. Like, you're in year 3 of Bill O'Brien. He brought in Ted Roof because of his experience. You need to turn around a 2-10 season. It just doesn't seem the right time to bring in a guy like Dibbs, who has never called a game before, when you need to have experience. Like, when Bill is his statements have been clear that he wants people with experience out there. So that's why I would say Chud would be the best fit for this. He has that experience. He's a guy that he's been around, he knows the terminology, and he brings that special piece that can help with your mobile quarterbacks. So to me, that's my home run quarterback So offensive coordinator, excuse me. Additionally, what if they go someplace else? What if they bring in a new name? And one name that I have liked a lot is someone that Bill would know from Mike Vrabel, and that's Nick Charlton. Nick Charlton was the offensive coordinator for UConn. He worked as the head coach at Maine. He worked as the passing game coordinator for the Browns, and I believe he's out of a job now because they just fired their entire staff. And he did quite a great job with the UConn Huskies. And you're looking at a guy who could, he's up and coming. Unlike some other guys, he has experience. He's done this before. So, you're looking at a potential good hire, up and comer, but with experience. He's out of a job. Could be a good fit for BC. He's worked at UConn, so I believe they had a mobile quarterback when he was there. But no, it was not. It was the kid that beat BC up. I don't think he was a mobile quarterback, but it doesn't matter. I think that would be another one. Honestly, for me, Chud's the guy. Chud's the guy for me. I know it's not the pick that everyone wants to hear, but I feel like that's where they're going to go. The other option B and C is Bill could just call the game himself. I'm not sure if he'll do that. A lot of coaches that do it are like upper echelon offensive minds. And I'm sure Bill thinks, and he's got the experience to do that kind of thing. I'm wondering if he wants to have a better grasp on everything else going around and he puts his input into the offense, which he said he did with Long. He said it on Meter's podcast, but I don't know if that's the case. We'll have to wait to see. If you listen to his comments, it almost kind of sounds like he said that. But I think he's saying he's running his offense, right? Like whoever's coming in is going to run O'Brien's offense. That's basically what it is. Now, in our final segment, let's talk about what Blake James said. There's a lot to talk about, and I'll get into that. And I'll end it with more basketball bad news. We'll talk about all that and more in just a moment. This is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show that there's more to the score than what's on the screen. I love the games that happened. We're talking one of the best games of all time with Fernando Mendoza. The most incredible play I've seen in the last 5 years with that run near the end. That reminds us what it takes to really raise the bar. It's all that effort and work off the court or on the field, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, the grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion to every model. Highlights make the real. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. Locked on Boston College, our special snow day episode. I got like 2 feet of snow out there. It's crazy. I splurged and got myself a plow for someone to plow me today because I got a huge driveway. I don't want to be doing that. So thank you all who have made us part of your daily routine because you helped me get that plow today. But anyways, I want to tell you about Blake James's most recent comments. So one of the big knocks on Blake James is he comes out. One of the most recent knocks is that he came out in December with this $50 million fundraising initiative that was supposed to help BC athletics. There's going to be matching. And the big part of that detail was that he said, and, we'll have more details coming soon. Well, we were more than a month away removed from that with no details. We didn't hear anything. So clearly behind the scenes, he had been working because you hear about it on his podcast, which he does with Meter Perel. And he talks about that $50 million. So it's to create an endowment to get more. It's not like, the way he made it sound, again, I'm going to try to dumb it down to the base level. It's not to create more NIL or to pay players. It's to fund more scholarships for a lot of their fields. So he mentioned lacrosse, right? Lacrosse is one of the best teams in the country, but I think he said 12 scholarships on that team, and they have 36 spots. So he's looking to endow more scholarships. So he needs that money to do that. Now, the other piece that he brought up with what piece that is, was that every donation in order for it to fit into this endowment, has to be over $250,000. So if you're listening to this, most of us probably can't do that. Like you're probably listening going, that's the cost of my house. But there's people out there that can afford that. And they've had, I think he said 7 donations of $250,000 or more. So in the grand scheme of things, they're up to that level. The part that was really confusing to me, and I couldn't understand, was like, he said at one point someone donated $50 million. I thought that's what I heard, but I was really confused by that. Now, I know a lot of folks heard this and were like, what? I thought this was to help like fund things, like, you know, being able to pay your football players so you could take this to the next level. Didn't clearly seem that way. So I get your frustration there. The other piece that I thought he brought up that was interesting was the Red Bandana Game. Now, a big gripe for folks, and I think people have the right to gripe about this, is that the Red Bandana Game, if you're new to this, it's to celebrate and honor the legacy of Wells Crowther, a hero from 9/11 who saved, I think, 18 people in the World Trade Center before he passed away, and he had the red bandana, so that's how people know him. He was a BC graduate, played lacrosse at BC. Here, right? One of the big knocks on it has been, or gripes, has been that, like this year, it was on November 8th, which is like almost 2 whole months away from 9/11. Like, if this is supposed to celebrate that, you know, his honor, it should be around that day, right? Like a game around that date. Well, this is the 25th anniversary coming up this year of the attacks of 9/11. And Blake James mentioned 2 quick things. One, the game will be on 9/11, and it's a Friday night against Rutgers. So that's a great thing. Not a great, it's like it's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be. You're playing Rutgers, who obviously has a connection to New York City. That's important. It's on 9/11. And it's a Friday night, so it's going to be special. So it hits all those markers. I thought that was really important and good. And then the final thing, and I don't have the quotes in front of me directly, but he spoke on basketball. And he talked about their 2-game winning streak that they were on. And he laid out what the goals were for basketball. First of all, that they should make the ACC tournament every year. Yeah. You didn't make it last year. You want to. Secondly, to regularly make the NCAA tournament was, I believe, the terminology he used, which is great because they haven't made the NCAA tournament in 18 years? So they haven't hit that mark. I have to say, listening to his comments, and again, this is my take. This is not what he said, but my perception of what Blake James said about Earl Grant. He seemed pretty lukewarm about him. Like, he mentioned that they took a big step back last year. He mentioned that they really haven't progressed, I think, the way that he's hoping they have. He was very effusive of the praise of the grit and determination of the players. He didn't seem like he was all that thrilled. Like, he didn't go out of his way to say anything super positive about Earl Grant. So again, my perception listening to that's just what I took away from that. And that came out on Friday. On Saturday, BC played Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame, I was on a 6-game losing streak, and this was on the road. So, yeah, tough. But BC was on a 2-game winning streak where they had just beaten 2 former Big East foes in Syracuse and Pitt, and they were feeling pretty good. And, hey, BC came out with guns blazing. They were up by, double digits for a good chunk of this game. And, the 2-game win streak, that felt good. But that second half wiped that all off the plate. They had a double-digit lead, and they watched it evaporate. And it all culminated with Earl Grant calling a timeout when he didn't have any timeouts left. He pulled a Chris Webber Fab 5 blunder. BC was going to lose the game anyways, but this basically sealed it for them. And to me, it really just struck how much he struggles at times with situational basketball. Like, how do you do that? Like, I guess it's impulsive, but like, that mistake doesn't happen that much to other coaches. So BC loses. They lose to Notre Dame, and now I believe they have Duke next. Yeah, that's not going to go well. So it was another bad loss. Hey, but while I'm here, hockey, swept UNH. They needed those wins bad. They won a home and home. Nice weekend for Luca Claudier, who had a shutout in game number 2. Great weekend for BC hockey. And that's where we're going to wrap things up. Tomorrow, actually, you know what? I'm lying. I'm going to go live again tonight because I was going to say I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, but why wait? Tonight, I'm going to go live again. I'm going to talk about the schedule release that's coming out for the ACC. We will know the entire ACC schedule and BC's entire schedule tonight. They're going to release it all. We'll have it all for you, and we'll have it here on Locked On BC. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247, on social media, and everywhere else you can find me. Thank you all, and I'll see you all again tomorrow or tonight for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.